Welcome to Linux Saloon, a place to discuss tech, open source, and where Linux is always on tap. Yada, yada, yada. Linuxy stuff, tech, open source. I'm Nate. How's everybody doing?
Excellent.
Yeah, doing good.
Nate gave the abbreviated
Yeah, good kid.
intro because we're late. He threw out the yada, yada, yada there.
I did. So be sure to do the Strawpoll if you have not done so. It has to do with your desktop or how you like to interact with your the interface. Do you like window managers, desktops better? What works best for you? On the docket for today, it's a news flight night, and it's gonna be a shorter night because I had things, and I literally just turned everything on. There's been no reboots or tests or anything, so I don't know if this whole thing could just go absolutely sideways, and then we're just gonna laugh about it. At least I know Eric will,
Yep.
and Adam.
It'll be the best ever, and then you'll never be able to figure out why.
Yep.
It's like if I prepare less, then we do better.
That's it. Just wing it.
That's it, man.
So first, to kind of kick this thing off, what are we doing in Linux and tech? So as we were just getting going with this thing, Adam was saying how Linux gaming has actually been pretty rad, although I don't think that's the word you used. I think you used something else. And,
Tubular? Yeah.
Tubular, gnarly. I don't know what's the appropriate word here. But I was interested in knowing, you said, because Eric, you made the comment, or you asked the question, are you just goofing around in Linux, almost as if you're saying Linux gaming, just give up on it? But Adam countered, and maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, so I'm sorry. But Adam countered that since the Steam Deck, things are pretty A-okay, and whatever features. So talk about those features that you're saying. Well, maybe wind it back to the beginning. But what are those features of in Linux gaming that seems to be working out really well?
So as far as the features that I was missing personally were some NVIDIA specific stuff. So DLSS was one of them. That's their AI upscaling technology.
Okay.
Another one was the ray tracing engines. Those have been around. Those have actually been working for quite a while, but that was one of them. And recently the DLSS frame generation, which uses their AI stuff to basically insert AI generated frames to increase frame rates. Another one was their NVIDIA Reflex technology, which is a latency reduction technology, which kind of ties into frame gen. Actually, they're kind of part of the same package.
Okay.
Those are a few, and those all work on Linux now. Some of them
about because of the advances, because NVIDIA is more forthcoming with things now. Or?
Yeah. So all of these technologies would have been enabled by NVIDIA, and they've added some of the features into as Vulkan layers. So it's part of the Vulkan spec, specifically like ray tracing and things. But there is a collection of libraries called NVAPI, and this is a collection of libraries that NVIDIA themselves maintain, and they add into, and Valve integrates into Proton. And NVAPI includes a lot of their proprietary stuff outside of the driver, right? So the driver has, the stuff to make the hardware work and some other hardware enablement, and these NVAPI libraries enable things like their upscaling through DLSS, the frame generation, reflex, those other NVIDIA specific technologies. So it's actually not necessarily the open source community always that are doing this. In this case, this is actually NVIDIA because it's their proprietary technology. And so, I know there's always the sort of narrative that NVIDIA hates Linux and doesn't care and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, man, that sure shows me they do care because they bothered to bring this over. And frame generation was a Windows specific thing for quite some time. And I wasn't ever sure that it was actually going to come over just because the way it worked. But they actually enabled it in Linux.
Well, that's pretty cool.
So a lot of those features were things that I was missing in Windows. Another one was HDR, but now like Plasma supports HDR. You have to use GameScope, which can be finicky, but it the only limitation there is because Wine currently runs games in X Wayland because they're X native. But as of recently, the latest Wine release has a Wayland driver. So in the not so distant future, there will be Wayland native versions of games, native Wayland versions of Proton and Wine running games in a native Wayland session, which then will just inherit things like the HDR. So you won't really need game scope, so to speak.
Well, that's pretty wild. So now does that mean how are Wine games then playing on my Wayland session now? Because I guess I thought it was. Is it like an X Wayland type thing, or is it some other?
Currently, okay. Yeah. Currently, it is X Wayland. So X Wayland isn't an entire like X org session within Wayland. It's sort of a minimalist implementation of the X11 protocol, right?
Okay.
So it's not the entire like X server. So you can have an install that doesn't have X, but can still have X Wayland, if that makes sense.
Is there any reason for the input that NVIDIA's done towards Linux at all? Is there a reason why they've done that, or they've just been working on it anyway?
As I don't work for them, I couldn't tell you.
Right.
But let's pretend like you did. We'll do like an AI chat thing. Let's pretend like you did work for them. Is that what you would do?
I'm gonna go on and say the nay no.
Okay.
I don't see. I really don't see the financial advantage to doing any of that.
Was that in fact a Pootie Tang reference?
It was in fact a Pootie Tang reference.
Okay,
yeah.
just checking. There, thank you, sir. Because you and I
I'm so glad you knew that. I'm so glad you knew that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
So
I
has the Linux
would
market
not
share
do that.
suddenly spiked or something?
It's possible. Like it just kind of goes hand in hand with their AI efforts, but I'm not even sure how that fits into this. But or just maybe they see the writing on the wall of sort of like, hey, this is Linux gaming is becoming a thing. We want to be a thing in gaming. We want to be the thing in gaming because right now they are. And this is how it works.
maybe the technology's gotten to a point where it's not a considerable amount of effort for them to do this. Whereas
That
maybe in
might be
the
a good
past,
point.
maybe in the past, the amount of engineering that it might have taken to bring this to a different platform like Linux would have meant, a lot of overhead versus maybe it's less now. I don't know.
Yeah, it's quite possible. I know like in the past they've had a lot of common components shared between their drivers between Windows and Linux, but yeah, it's I couldn't even pretend to know, to be honest.
The other
I'm
question
just
I
happy
had
they
for
did.
you, yeah, well, the other question I had was, and this is just something that I don't follow it. So I know ray tracing was one of those sort of transformative technologies that, it seems like it was like the world of gaming before ray tracing and now after it. Have there been other sort of things like that maybe I just haven't heard of? Because that was always something that seemed to prohibit gaming making advancements on Linux. Was there were these significant changes in the way games were made or the technologies that were in the engines themselves or something like that made it prohibitively difficult to port them, or is this just because Proton is so and Wine is so adept now at being able to support these things? I really just don't know,
As far as like
point.
what new tech, a big part is actually like path tracing. So like the ray tracing that most games you'll see is sort of augmented. So like you'll have your traditionally rasterized stuff, and then you'll have ray tracing maybe take care of reflections or take care of shadows or ambient occlusion or something. But I feel like the big thing that ray tracing offers is actually a thing called path tracing, or what marketing would say full ray tracing. And that's where every single light in the game is produced through ray tracing. So there's no, like, artists place the lights, but there's no artistry to the lights, if that makes sense. So like they don't have to pre-bake light maps and make sure like light, shadow maps and all. It's all completely simulated light rather than just reflections or just shadows. Like everything, reflections, shadows, ambient occlusion, illumination, everything is just completely simulated, right? So for example, playing Cyberpunk, they call it ray tracing overdrive mode, and it's the entire game is path trace. And so I feel like that's a big one. That actually Monday the new Indiana Jones game releases, and that has a full path tracing option as well. And so I feel like that's kind of the future, and it's an extremely computationally intensive thing, right? So I have a RTX 4090, monstrous GPU, but if I just turn on path tracing, I'm getting probably about 15 frames a second on this game.
Holy cow.
Now, then I can use their AI upscaling, which runs the game internally at a lower resolution and then upscales it. So like in my menu, say I select, let's say 4K, for example. If I run it in performance mode, it's actually rendering the game at 1080p, but upscaling it to 4K for my monitor, right? That kind of thing. And so the game computationally only has to do it at 1080p instead of 4K. So you get a little more performance out of it. But even then, you're still looking at like maybe 20 frames a second with path tracing. So then that other thing I talked about was the frame generation comes in, where it uses the AI machine learning things for the game to then insert the fake frames and give you a higher frame rate. And that basically allows you to play with path tracing, all of that combined, right? The reflex, the path tracing, all that. It's amazing. It makes the game look so incredible comparatively.
I remember you talking about that AI component and how unbelievable it was in terms of the frame rates that you were getting.
Oh yeah. So that example in Cyberpunk, if I run path tracing without DLSS and without frame gen, I get about 15 frames a second at my current settings and resolution. If I turn on the upscaling and the frame gen, I'm running it at 90 frames a second.
Wow.
So like if you want to know what the actual tech that's making a big difference other than ray tracing, it's the AI stuff. So it's AI upscaling, AI frame generation, AI latency reductions, all the stuff.
What I find amazing, which I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around, that it's computationally simpler to AI upscale than it is to calculate at the 4K. Like that to me makes my head hurt because I don't understand that. But yet here we are.
It is basically the AI stuff. So NVIDIA's GPUs have dedicated what they call tensor units or whatever. They're basically dedicated AI processors on every single core within the GPU. And those are specialized to do these workloads, right? It's kind of like how an NPU or something in a modern SoC can do AI stuff really fast, but if you tried to do it on the CPU or GPU, it'd be slow, right? Because it's not. Those are meant for more generalized things. Like your GPU cores are more meant for graphics things. Can you run other things on them? Yeah, but it's not really specialized for that. But these AI cores are specialized for that. And so they leverage those parts of the silicon to do the upscaling and other things while the graphics cores are doing the graphics part. And then they have separate cores for ray tracing. And then the 40 series for the frame generation have separate cores called like optical flow cores or something. And those are just specifically there to do motion vectors for stuff like frame gen. And so it's all of these specialized cores and like specialized hardware that they build into GPUs now that enables these AI things that kind of push games beyond what you normally would just be able to do with a regular GPU.
So at what point do you think the whole computer could just be the GPU?
Because that's a hard one.
Have you seen the GPUs that have built-in NVMe slots, or at least one slot?
Yeah.
So they have all these processors, all these cores. I mean, how much more complex would it be to add a CPU onto that now and just
There are a lot of more generalized things, instructions that a CPU does that a GPU just doesn't. GPUs are meant to be specialized accelerators, not general math things, right? And so like it's also a matter of like precision. Like GPUs don't work well with like huge amounts of precision as far as I understand, and there's a latency in their memory that you don't have in system. There's a reason our CPUs have not been replaced. That's what I'm trying to say. From what I understand, there's quite a few little things that CPUs can do better, and yeah, we haven't gotten to that point yet.
I'm just saying.
And also,
Well,
I'd
it's
like
just
to
like
point out that while I'm doing the path tracing, my GPU is chugging at like 450 watts. So
Wow.
even with all the upscaling and everything, it's heating up the room. Put it that way.
Well, that's nice. I mean, you live in Wisconsin now, so that's actually probably pretty nice. Really.
Yeah. It's pretty rough in the summer though. I'll tell you that. It gets real warm in here.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. Well, that's.
So yeah.
I guess it's really good. It's really great news, really. I mean, I think that having the fact that you have the features that you or that you would have on Windows now in Linux for gaming. Obviously, there's some anti-cheat stuff probably, but that basically means, hey, I mean, you're pretty much at parity now.
Yeah, because I don't play any of the anti-cheat games. I don't play multiplayer games. I'm too old. Like, I'm just not fast enough. I have too much wrist pain and stuff. I can't do that. So
Okay.
yeah, and so like I mostly play just single player stuff, and those typically don't have anti-cheat because who are you cheating against? So I'll run into that.
I hear you.
I know it's not a really good answer because there's plenty of people who do, but to be honest, like I'm not here to proselytize Linux. I'm here to just say, hey, I'm using it. If you can use it, cool. If not, whatevs.
Well, it is Linux Saloon, so I think that you can push it as much as you want here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't. like it you get caught up in the whole like edge. It's a non-stop barrage of edge cases, and I just don't even bother with that.
Right. No, I get it.
Well, what about this game? Well, what about this GPU? Or what about this hardware? What about that? It's like, well, I don't have any of that, so I don't really care. Sorry, guys.
Now, this is only slightly related, but like I also playing Windows games in Linux. I've been having a great experience with Warcraft 2, The Tides of Darkness, from 1999. I just bought it from GOG. Even though I have the box copy, I don't know where my CD is with like the thing on it, so I thought I'd just buy one, especially since I guess Blizzard's going to pull it back. So anyway, I just want to say that, although I'm sure Proton's not really doing much for me here, since I could play it back in 2005, no problem, on Linux. That's been a fun game. I don't know if GOG's pulled it, if it has lost it already, but I know Blizzard pulled it back, and so for those of you that
I think
live,
next Friday.
Friday, okay,
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, so I bought them both, Warcraft and Warcraft 2. And man, they run great in Linux. It's best I could ask for. Yeah, no problem.
Are you installing them through Heroic?
So yes, that's I installed. So Warcraft 1, I'm gonna have to do just with DOSBox because Heroic doesn't do DOSBox stuff very well. It seems, at least for me. So I'll manually install it and then link it with Heroic. So
Okay, yeah.
I'll build like a little because it's really trivial at this point. Not that I was a big DOS guy back in the day, but you can create like little config files. So I have to do like a launcher basically to launch it in DOSBox, have it pre-configured with your sound stuff automatically, and then, launch it like you want. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty rad. But anyway, no AI upscaling in it though. So I don't know if that's a possibility. If we can maybe do that.
I'm going to make the comment that I think the remasters they did of those just look like cheap mobile games. Because they upscaled the graphics, it doesn't have that like old charm to it. It looks like just a cheap mobile game.
So you're correct. However, I don't care. Because if you use the upscaled one, it doesn't look for the CD, and so then it works for me. I don't have to go through that process.
Wait, are you talking about the new one, the remaster that just came out?
Well, I don't know. The one I just bought from GOG. Because it doesn't have
theirs is not. I don't think theirs is the remaster. Yeah,
it has a remaster version and then the original classic. They have two options.
Oh, okay, okay.
So
Because
if
I know the one that Blizzard just released recently looks
Maybe
like a mobile game.
maybe it's a remaster of the remaster. I don't know.
I have no idea. It all gets crazy after a while.
Yeah. So I guess what you're saying, I guess that to boil it down, so not that my experience is exactly like yours, but seems like Linux gaming is pretty close to everything I want and you want.
Yeah, pretty close. I mean, there's still some tinkering to be done. Like there's sometimes you got to find some wacky like launch options and stuff that you have to throw into Steam, or you know some weird thing you have to just some weird incantation you have to do to make things work. But it's much less than it used to be, and it's less and less all the time. Like, and I'm actually reminded of a thread I recently read about, speaking of the frame generation. People were commenting on some frame time skips on frame generation, and how they noticed like a slight stutter every so often on frame gen. And somebody in the comments was like, man, if are we at the point now where we're just complaining about frame times and frame generation? And it's like, I remember a time where we couldn't get anything running at all. He's like, if he's like, as far as I'm concerned, like if we're just complaining about this, we've made it. Like, yeah, that's fair.
That's very true.
So what I think is funny, and this is kind of like sidetracking from all that a little bit, but I guess that's what we do here. When it toward the winter time of my Windows gaming, so like late 90s and like very early 2000s when I was playing like Descent 3 whatever on my AMD K62 machine, there was so much fiddling and having to do incantations for getting just getting it to work at a decent frame rate, and then making sure the joystick would work. Like there was a lot of work that had to be done for PC gaming in the late 90s. So then I made that transition to Linux, in the early 2000s, and so having to do all that work to play games was already natural for me anyway. So the fact that things got easy with Steam, at any level has been pretty great on Linux. But so I mean, like I never got that easy, the like making things easy or whatever. I never actually got that like in Windows gaming, so I don't know what that's like. If I want easy gaming, I go for a PlayStation or a Switch.
Right.
So, yeah. I blow a cartridge. I mean, even the NES wasn't all that easy. You had to blow on it, fiddle with it. It had.
Right. No, but it's all out there, right? Like there's Proton DB for finding various fixes and issues that games might have. There's tons of forums and helpful thing. Like I like to hang out in the Universal Blue Discord and help people who are having trouble with Bazite and stuff. Like there's people out there. If you find me out there, then feel free to ask questions as well. But yeah, it's just I mean, it's so much better than it used to be.
So Bazite, is that the like basically SteamOS but built on Fedora?
Yeah, built on the Universal Blue stuff. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Do you have that running on like Bazite on a gaming machine, or?
I do. I have it on my ROG Ally.
Okay. And how is the ROG Ally with Bazite? How does it compare to the Steam Deck?
So the ROG Ally hardware is faster than the Steam Deck in terms of like the SoC, right? The system, but I find that the Steam Deck control scheme is better because the Steam Deck has things like the trackpads. The Steam Deck has the Ally gyro works, but I don't think it works as well. The Steam Deck has a really good, like well calibrated gyro. The Steam Deck has the capacitive touch on the thumbsticks, so you can have extra bits on the thumbsticks, activated, like gyro aiming, for example. I find that just seems to work better. The Steam Deck has better battery life, especially if you have an OLED one. I don't have an OLED one, but if you have an OLED Steam Deck, those things last forever on battery compared to the others. And it's still a bit more integrated, but I mean, Bazite is it's an incredible project. Like the folks who work on that are just really good at what they do. And they've integrated a lot of stuff for the other handhelds. So like extra little plugins and stuff that integrate like the hardware of those handhelds, like maybe the RGB lights or the TDP, changing the power profiles and stuff on them. And there's a lot of work that went into those. So yeah, big shout out to the Bazite guys. They have done an incredible job at bringing that to devices. And that's another news topic I was gonna bring up was regarding those. So,
well, I guess
regarding SteamOS,
we'll get to that because also I have an article about the Steam machines. I don't know if you want.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And thanks to Eris for putting that together. And also, I want to thank Eris for putting together the straw poll here, since we should probably get to that. So the straw poll was: which do you prefer to use, a window manager or a full desktop environment? I think the implied is on your Linux or BSD system. So if you haven't done the straw poll yet, you can knock that out real quick if you like. I didn't get any replies, unless I got one on Mastodon recently. I don't have Mastodon on this computer. Maybe I should get into Mastodon more. I don't know. So let me go ahead and just refresh here. So which do you prefer to use, a window manager, or a full desktop environment? So our number one answer, with 80% of the votes, is the desktop environment. And then there's no preference at 10% for getting 10% of the vote for 3 votes. And last, window manager. Well, okay, there's also a vote for other and Tux Penguin, but of those 3. Oh, the desktop environment went up just a little bit more. So, but still in first place. So you can check that out. So here, does anybody here use a window manager instead of a desktop environment? So
I'd love to know. Sometimes I can't tell the difference between the two of them.
Like Isaac and Esau, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like Enlightenment, that desktop / you know what I mean? To me, it's kind of both. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. There was something I was playing with recently. It was Bunsen Labs. So that's that's not a desktop environment. That is a window manager.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm having a really hard time. Like, okay, I know what. For the hardcore folks out there, I'm sure they fully understand it, and I'm probably just nothing more than an unschooled, uneducated numpty. But for me, when I look, I understand the concept from a technical perspective. A window manager manages the windows. So Plasma utilizes Kwin as the window manager to do whatever the desktop does within the window manager. So if you have a desktop environment, you also have a window manager because something's got to manage Windows. But a window manager isn't necessarily a desktop environment. So what is the delineation?
I think it's very difficult from some distros to tell it apart. Well, like Enlightenment, rather. I mean, desktops. Enlightenment, to me, seems right in the middle of both. Then when we used Bunsen Labs, their open box session, technically to me, was very close to being both too, but not as much as Enlightenment. And then the list keeps going there for me. I'm confused. I was hoping somebody could answer it for me.
I would argue that a desktop environment is something that includes not just a window manager, but also like the shell and sort of an app ecosystem around it as well.
Okay.
Because like KDE and GNOME, for example, both have like their own apps, their own window managers, as well as their own like shells and everything else, right? And
Okay.
like XFCE has their own, XF terminal and other things like that.
Right.
If you have something like, say, Hyperland, i3, Sway, whatever, those typically just provide the window manager. You have to provide the shell parts. So like Waybar would be another piece, or Rofi for launching things and all that. Whereas the desktop environment kind of comes with all that as one big piece, right?
Yeah.
That's how I distinguish them.
So normally when I think of a desktop normally when I think of one that is a window manager, I think of it as being lighter than a desktop environment. And so I would prefer to use something like that on one of my older machines. For example, I was running Bunsen Labs on a ThinkPad X60 for years, and I would do it again. But at the same time, if I was going to use a more recent machine, then it would be a desktop environment because then I'm not trying to, save when it comes to headroom at all. So that's kind of my thought on that. But I really like OpenBox. It does take some getting used to, and it can be interesting, but it is pretty cool.
So,
Uh,
is it so? See, I guess the thing with window managers, and I guess tiling window managers in particular, is so you're saying it's less, I guess, overhead maybe, but I guess it's trading the convenience of having a floating, desktop manager, window manager, whatever you want to call it.
Well,
and
there's tiling window manager and stacking window manager.
oh, okay,
So stacking is when they have
So-
overlapping.
got it. Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know. I mean, I think if you have a very specific need for a tiling window manager, or it makes sense for a specific application, then like I think of like scientific, research, or like just maybe monitoring systems where you've got like you need to see many things at once, or maybe you're doing some sort of software development or compiling, or things where it's important to be able to see the maximum amount of things on your screen at the same time. Um,
It has me think like HMI or human machine interface, like something you would see like on an appliance, like on a factory floor, some sort of an HMI, like that would have like a window manager that would just be very basic, because you don't want to have any frills and bells and whistles. You just want it to do a task, and that's it.
Yeah, so it's more dedicated, right?
Right.
You're saying that hardware is more specifically doing like a certain thing.
Right. And it needs maximum performance out of that at all times. May not be utilizing all the resources, but needs to have those as many resources available as possible. So,
right, like you could look at Kwin as Kwin is a window manager, right? Or Quinn, or however people want to pronounce it, whatever. Kwin is a window manager, but like it's only a piece of the overall KDE desktop, right? It's an overall like coherent platform, whereas the window manager is just the part that does the windows, and that's for all window managers really. Like OpenBox, like, well, the taskbar is usually Tint 2 or something else. It's not OpenBox, right?
right. So it looks like based on
I
this.
think
No, go ahead, Colin.
sorry, Nate.
No,
Well, I was going to say, when I look at the two different, like window manager and a desktop environment, if I was to use a window manager, which is more keyboard focused, right, rather than point and click, which is a desktop.
Not necessarily.
If I had that, not necessarily.
Not necessarily, no. You can have like mouse-driven window
Well-
managers. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of when I see people upload videos on window managers, they're sort of they do use keyboard a lot to open and close and to search for applications and things like that. I
Right.
do know you can use a mouse, but if I was to have a window manager on this system and one of my family members came in and I asked them to do something in there, I think they'd be a bit lost though, right? Don't you think?
I think so.
Whereas a desktop is, if it started up, it was a traditional type desktop. Even with GNOME, they'd probably work it out. But the first thing they're going to do is grab a mouse, right? So that's just the way I see it from my perspective. But yeah, sure, window managers can use a mouse. There's no doubt about it. But
think about it though. It's also a factor of what type of device is it. So our phones are all inherently sort of a tiling, if you want to call it that. There's generally, I mean, you can do a split screen in some cases. I don't think many people do, but in most cases, you're using a single application full screen, and you can switch between them and all of that. But the idea being that you're really only focused on one thing at a time, and so again, I think there's ample room for both types. It's just going to depend on the application and what you're trying to do. I think the argument's made often that to your point, yes, people will use keyboard shortcuts because of the efficiency sort of inherent to that. Like if
Yeah,
you have the
true.
muscle memory to know to switch, because what people
Yeah,
will do a lot of times is they'll put, you can basically script it so that whenever a certain application opens, it will open on a certain desktop. And so then you have the muscle memory to know that, my email is on desktop 6. And so
yeah,
you just,
that's right.
that type of thing. And so, to Adam's point, yes, you could probably do it with the mouse, but it's just, if in most cases your hands are already on the keyboard anyway, so you would
Mm.
just, use keyboard shortcuts. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's doesn't necessarily have to be about, well, maybe lower spec hardware runs better with one or the other, or, I mean, I think we've seen that, Plasma, which I would say is one of the more advanced desktop environments, is very lightweight, or at least can be. So the arguments, I think, really come down to personal preference. If it's, something you find that you get utility out of, and also the application, for what you're doing, the environment. If it's an environment where, to Nate's point, where you're doing one, dedicated thing with that system, or yeah, I think it's fun to play with. If you've not used them, I think, Sway is kind of fun to play around when, the Wayland, it's kind of like an i3 version or Wayland version of i3 in a lot of ways. But um, if you take
Well,
the
there is one
time,
that's
good.
there is one that came out. What's the? It's not Sway. There's another one. There's another window manager that's come out based on Wayland. What's the name of that? I've seen someone make a video on it, and geez, it actually looked really nice the way it was all set up. It wasn't Sway though; it was something else. I can't
Hyperland?
remember the name of it. Oh yeah, Hyperland. That's the one. Yeah, yeah. That looks quite interesting. Um, that's a window manager, right? Hyperland, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, looks like a very interesting project. One guy had it's amazing the way he had it all set up. It looks really nice. So for me, I just think trying to remember keyboard shortcuts and stuff. Although maybe you don't have to if you've got a what do you call it, a launcher, be quite easy. But yeah, that project does look very interesting. The Hyperland one, I must say.
I think my problem is that I like I like having the ability to tile, but not necessarily be forced to tile for me. So as far as a tiling window manager is concerned, so like in Plasma, I can very easily just, hotkey tile left, right, or in the quadrants or whatever. No advanced
Yeah,
tiling, but basic tiling is largely all I really need for me personally. The more advanced tiling is neat, but I think I don't know. It's not necessarily what I necessarily want. I guess is what I'm getting at. Although it would be nice if Plasma could pick up on the fact that, like, if you have like an ultra wide monitor, they maybe want to tile in thirds as opposed to half. Things like that. I'm sure there's a way to configure that. Everything's configurable somehow. But that's just my thought.
I'd have to think that a window manager would work really well on those big wide screens, wouldn't they? Because um,
Yeah, you'd think that.
yeah,
And they can
uh,
if you have a lot of stuff up. But if you only have like
yeah,
one
okay,
thing, it's like the whole screen is that one thing.
yeah, okay, yeah, yeah, that would
It's
be
like
interesting
if
to
you just,
see.
oh, I need to open a terminal to launch something or to do something, and it's like the whole screen is the terminal and you're just typing in the top left corner. Yeah. It gets a little silly. And then if you get like the really wide ones, like the 42 by 9 ones, like the really long ones, that'd be even worse. But yeah, if
They
you
all
have a
work
bunch of
on
stuff
Linux,
open,
those
it'd be
things, or
awesome.
what? Do they all work on Linux, those big wide monitors now? Or
Yeah.
yeah,
Wouldn't see why not. It's just we've been able to have arbitrary resolutions for a while now, so
You muted, Nate.
I didn't want you to hear me coughing.
Oh, I thought you were talking.
Well, I was, but I didn't realize I was. Anyway, yeah, Linux is pretty great. I have some strange monitor setups, and Linux just, I should say Plasma has no problem recognizing what it is, and then, but I think that's part of like the display protocol, because the monitor will tell the computer, hey, this is what I am, and then the operating system will make the adjustments accordingly automatically, as it's supposed to. Although I did find that with a little bit older of a computer, so like I have a Gen 4 Intel laptop, if I plug in a monitor that has a strange resolution to it, it's just going to go 1080p. I have to manually set X to like add that screen mode to it, because it can't automatically pull it in. I don't know why. I don't know if it's a hardware thing. It's got to be a hardware thing, because it's the same software as everything else. So, I don't know. It's an issue somewhere, but easy to fix in X. I don't know how to fix it in Wayland yet. So anyway, yeah, good times. So anybody here using a window manager? Was it Dale? Did Low Tech Linux? Did he say he used a window manager? I don't know.
I am not.
Oh, okay.
No, I every one now and then. I mean, it's fun to just play around with it. I just usually when I jump into it, I realize the time that I'd have to invest to really sort of, make it worth my while. And that's just it too. Like I'm not really working, in a really dedicated way right now, where I'm using my computer in such an intensive way where it's going to pay off for me to do that. I mean, I think certainly different times in my career that probably would have been the case, that it would have been helpful, but it still, even then, would have been a fairly significant, investment and time to get it, because you get a basic configuration, but ultimately you're going to want to lay out your desktops. Because I mean, really, what you're trading is on a stacking desktop. You've got 15 programs open, but you kind of like, I don't know about you guys, but I tend to just put things in the same places. So like I have, a chat app in the top right and a browser on the left, and like sort of things I know where they are, even though they're stacked. And so what you're doing on a tiling window manager is you're doing the same thing, but you're using desktops to separate things instead of the window stacking. So then you just sort of have to remember, okay, like I was saying with, emails on desktop 6 and sort of, so it's a little more precise, I guess, but how much time are you really saving? And yeah, again, I guess it comes back to what you're doing. So I can see if you're doing, like system administration or, some sort of orchestration, deployment, that type of stuff, like there's probably ample opportunity where if you were to take the time to set it up a certain way, it would probably benefit you. But yeah, at this point, it's just fun to play around with for a little bit, and then just remember that it's more effort than I'm likely to invest.
Yeah. You have to really, I guess, to your point, you'd have to really live in it, like have a real need for it. Or you just think it's neat. One of the two.
Yeah, you don't have to. I mean, if that's just how you see.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if that's how your brain works and that's how you see using a computer, like it's I'm sure it's awesome. You see people like talking about their dot files and sharing, all their setups and stuff. So, there's plenty of people that do it that probably have no reason to.
I call that the Adam Grubbs justification for why you do things. It's just neat.
I just think it's neat.
It's just neat. So
because he can.
So some comments here from the YouTubes. It says Pamela says Cronkite can tile in thirds in column mode on Plasma. So that's interesting. I know it's a more advanced tiler plugin or addition to. Last update was in 2022, so I don't know if it works with Plasma 6, but certainly with Plasma 5. And Sean says, besides stacking and tiling, there are also tabbed interfaces for multiple apps on a monitor. So that also seems pretty interesting. I wonder how. I know, like, I mean, I guess that's how I use my browser, right? Tabbed.
Yes.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah, how does that
technically,
work? How does that work? Tabbed on a desktop.
I don't know.
So your Windows. Oh, I think I've seen somebody do
It
that
could-
before, actually. So your Windows open, but they're all tabbed. Yeah, I have seen that somewhere.
So what if you can
before.
like combinations of stacked, tab, and tiling? If we can like make it all work together, because I can see like tiling and tabs. So maybe you want to tab a few different functions in one tile. I don't know. Might be
I
cool.
wonder if that's on Cosmic. I wonder if Cosmic is working on that. I have seen it somewhere.
Yeah.
I
And
was
so-
going to say it's funny. I've been using Pop for quite a while now, and it has a tiling window manager sort of add-on built in, and I think I've turned it on exactly twice in like over a year. But it's that, I mean, I think that's interesting to at least have the option. Again, it's not something that I find useful myself, but the idea that you could have something like Pop where they have the add-on and it enables things like having exceptions to it and basically all the things you can do with a typical tiling window manager, but just have it be sort of conditional when you want it on or only applying it to certain things. And I know Cosmic's going to bring that forward as well. So
that it's neat. I think that what Cosmic's doing is also very. They seem like on the leading edge of things right now. So it's very exciting to see how they're pushing things.
I used it on my Latitude for a couple months, and it's fine. I mean, there's just so many things, quality of life, sort of last mile sort of things that it's just going to take them a while to get to, which you'd expect.
For sure.
But in terms of stability, and I mean, it's perfectly capable of, you can use it to use a computer, but you're just lacking certain things. And I mean, it's only going to get better as time goes on. So I sort of decided to leave it where it is for now and then come back to it maybe in 6 months or so and see how far they've gotten.
I should try it in Tumbleweed again, just to see how it goes. So Sean says in the chat, says tabbed window manager could lead to tab hoarding in a completely new level. Be like like S tier hoarding, I suppose. Can hoard like no other. Very cool. All right, well, I think window managers are, came in third place, so people still like the full desktop environment. And I can understand that. Got to be a special kind of nerd for window managers, I suppose. All right, so I guess let's move on to the news flights for tonight. See how many we can get into in the next 30 minutes-ish, I think. So I don't know if anyone here is running Plasma right now, but there is a they implemented something new. I got an article here on that from pointystick.com. Pointieststick.com. That's Nathan Graham. Nate Graham. Not me. There's a he's much smarter than I am. But Adventures in Linux and KDE. So there's a pop-up notification. It's not, I wouldn't call it a nagging notification, but there is a pop-up that'll happen in your down in the system tray. That so once a year it's going to ask for donations. So starting December 1st, I'll just read the article. It says various reasons justifications were given in the past, so won't be repeated here. Instead, since December 1st, in most of the world, it's time to check on the day one experience of the notification. So did it work? And it looks like it did. So in December, if you read the article, Donations were twice that of November, and that was just in the first few days. So I guess that's a yes. So the question is, do people hate us now? So far, indications point to no. So Nate Graham scoured Reddit and discussed at KD.org. And so no one found, so he only found one non-positive comment about it, dwarfed by a large amount of mildly to highly positive ones. So he says, I wasn't looking at Mastodon or other social media, but colleagues reported something similar. So in addition to a large number of donations themselves were accompanied by positive messages from the donors. And here's some of my favorites. By my favorites, I mean Nate Graham. Katie's more than just software. It's a family. Least I can donate, but it's coming from someone that pirates every other thing or uses a free alternative. Thanks for all your incredible work over the years. Then KD Plasma is a big part of why I have grown to love Linux as my daily driver. So there's this, thanks for all you have done for Linux desktop community. And then thanks for Plasma and so forth. So the question is going to be, is it repeatable? So it's too early to say that at this point, but I hope so. It'll be interesting to see how fast the donations drop off. Will be relatively fast because someone who was going to donate after seeing the notification already saw it yesterday, or will it drop off, take a while because there are more notification-based potential donors who didn't turn on their Plasma 6.2 using computer yet, or opened the donations page in a browser tab to action later. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Now I would think, though, if it's going to only pop up December 1st, or maybe it's not all for everybody, maybe they just started December 1st, I don't know. So it says, however, it's also worth mentioning that these donations are coming entirely from people using distros that include Plasma 6.2 right now. That's pretty much limited to fast-paced distros like Arch, Fedora, KDE, KDE Neon, OpenSUSE, Tumbleweed, and their derivatives. Notably, it excludes traditional heavy hitters like Kubuntu and Debian, so there's reason to expect that donation notifications to reach even more eyeballs in 2025 than it has this year. So, and then there's some other comments there too, but so I was going to ask, I thought I read a while ago, and maybe I misread it, maybe I misunderstood it, but I thought that there's some distributions they don't like any sorts of like nagging for donations or something like that, notifications for donations. Did anybody read that? Like that's like not permitted in some distros? Or am I making that up? Maybe I'm making that up.
Could be because of software. I don't know if that would have necessarily meant the desktop environment itself, but I know that there are, certain pieces of software over the years where that would happen. But again, I think I don't know, how much control does the distro have? Realistically, do they,
It's possible
put
they
up-
don't want to deal with the tax stuff and like financial stuff that goes into writing his income, right?
Yeah, if it's seen as that coming to them, except that, if something like Plasma, that link is going to go directly to them. So I don't know.
Oh, no, I meant like why smaller or other projects might shy away from donations.
Yeah.
Like they don't want to deal with the financial stuff, taxes, and
Yeah.
other things that might come with taking donations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a sort of level of scrutiny there. Yeah, you're right.
So how often does this thing nag? On does it nag once or
I think it's
it comes back again after?
maybe annually. I don't know. One time a year, according to Low Tech Linux.
Zoe Ronan in the chat said, "Love that notification. It was very non-intrusive." So
He did
maybe
use an
if it's not
emoji.
annoying, it's fine.
So I wonder if, it didn't like take over your screen. It was just in the bottom there.
Maybe it's not a bad idea because maybe some people just actually forget to donate, and maybe they have intentions to, but they just get busy and forget, and maybe that little notification can just remind them donations.
Hey, the easier they can make it, the better. I mean, if someone's asking me for money, don't make me work to do it.
Yeah, that's true.
You want my $20, make it so that I can click and 3 steps later I'm done,
Does it actually take you to to a donation page, or is there anything that takes you to a donation page, or it's just a
Yeah,
reminder?
it launches it's a link to the donation page essentially if you click on it.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, yes, web page link. Okay, yeah. I
S-
don't. Low Tech Linux says it goes away for a year. Pops up, then goes away for a year. I don't really see that as being a problem, to be honest.
It
I'm
doesn't
gonna
bother me.
submit a I'm gonna submit an issue on their GitLab to see if they can change that to donate to me instead. But I don't
Try
know.
that out. Yeah.
I'll probably just do a pull request so I can at least get the work out of the way, so they can just pull it in. Money goes to me. It's all good.
I think you should do it like twice a year. Seems like that'd be better. Because if you only see it once, I don't know. Like
I mean,
pay
it's like Wikipedia, right? They only yell at you one time a year, like throughout a part of
Yeah.
a year, right?
right, but they take up your entire page, so you have to
Oh,
like
yeah,
scroll
no, they
down a
go.
while to get there. Yeah, they really take over things.
They go
Um,
all in. Yeah.
The only thing they're missing is like the RSPCA and PETA, like, damaged animals and all that to make you feel bad. Like they're almost
Sarah
there.
McLaughlin playing in the background.
Yeah, yeah. Arms of an angel. Yeah, just yeah. That's the next thing, man. That's the next
Yeah.
thing.
I don't know. I got pretty disillusioned by them because that foundation has enough money to operate for like the next 30 years, and they still act like they have no money. So, I have a hard time.
How
Well-
else can they afford another solid gold Humvee?
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Weird Al. So I think the KDE Foundation or community, whatever, it's probably necessary for them to do this because they were losing money. They're not actually able to pay all the bills. So I think if this makes them more sustainable, I think that's a huge win, and maybe we'll see a lot more advancements come to the Plasma desktop environment as well. And rising tides raise all ships. So I think this is going to, me personally, I think this is better for Linux overall. And I've been donating annually now for a while, although I have it automatically donating.
Maybe it's just a coincidence, but I feel like so many of the people I meet, um, that are involved with Linux are sort of similar situation where, late 90s, early 2000s, a lot of people, and that was my era, so maybe that's why that's the case. But, it seems like a lot of people were coming to Linux around then and from maybe a more professional standpoint and using it in their their IT spheres. And maybe the case is now that because a lot of us have gotten to an age where we can afford to chip in, that just asking the question and reminding people leads to this type of an outcome where, if they're saying they've received more donations in the first few days of the month than they have the entire previous month or whatever time period, if really just reminding people is all it takes, and because someone like me, if there was a genuine concern about something that I use, not being available because of something as simple as not having enough money, that not having enough money is probably one of the easiest possible problems realistically, because I mean, you can make people care about that, and you can, take very small donations, very large donations, and ultimately, I mean, it's much easier to just take money than it is to hire people or, all the more sort of difficult ways to grow and sustain, setting up new hardware, all those sort of things that might be much more difficult if the only thing standing between something being sustainable and not is money. I just feel like if people aren't asking, like if this this notion that we have to constantly walk on eggshells, about being upfront about, like, where do you think this stuff comes from? It's not like magic. It's not like,
Right.
The
Comes out of
pixies
thin
are
air.
develop. Yeah, exactly. Like
When a
like
mommy
real
software and a
people.
daddy software love each other very much.
You get
Exactly.
cosmic.
And I think we all live in the real world, and I mean everybody's got to work. And, I mean, like,
Well,
if you just think
um,
about it from the terms of like somebody's doing this and it costs money
yeah.
to do it, you
Right.
know, and we all benefit from it. And how is it unfair to just say, look, kick back $5, $10, you know, something very reasonable.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't take much. I mean, even just
Strength in numbers.
a few bucks here and there makes a big difference for an organization like this. So, yeah, it can be huge.
I think it's cheaper than buying a new laptop, right? Or buying a new computer. Because Linux can keep your computer running for quite a while, right? Once it's expired from the the Windows realm, it can continue for quite a long time. So instead of buying, if you're into gaming like Adam, obviously you're going to buy more updated software because it's going to suit the way gaming changes so often. But if you're just doing your normal, run-of-the-mill stuff on a computer, like most people do, just the general stuff, yeah, I think it's worthwhile. I mean, I think I donated to what was it, Thunderbird, which is good to see. They've got their new app running now on Android, which is great. So all those sorts of things, you get benefits, right? It's good.
I will send the developers a liter of milk.
Hey, that's real money these days.
Yeah,
It is.
it's more thoughtful because I didn't just give you money. I gave you something I thought you
Right.
might need.
Yeah.
It's on the way.
Hand woven handicrafts.
But if they're lactose intolerant, then that could be a problem.
No,
Remember
you
that
can
whole
always-
thing I was saying earlier about edge cases, Nate? Like it's we could do this all night.
That's fun. So speaking of all night, actually it has nothing to do with all night, but there's a news article, and I think this is something from that's a little more down that we were talking about earlier, Adam, about a SteamOS, the return of a Steam machine. So Valve is rolling out a new powered by SteamOS branding. So
Yeah.
I'll go and throw it here in the so people can read along. But so from Ars Technica, the return of the Steam machines, Valve rolls out new powered by SteamOS branding. So longtime Valve watchers have likely remember Steam Machine, the company's aborted pre-Steam Deck attempt at creating a line of third-party gaming PC hardware based around an early version of its Linux-based SteamOS. Now there are strong signs that Valve is on the verge of launching similar third-party hardware branding effort under the Powered by SteamOS label. The newest sign of those plans has come via newly updated branding guidelines posted by Valve on Wednesday, as noticed by the trackers at SteamDB. That update including first appearance of a new Powered by SteamOS logo intended for hardware running the SteamOS operating system, implemented in close collaboration with Valve. The document goes on to clearly clarify that the new Powered by SteamOS logo indicates that a hardware device will run the SteamOS and boot into SteamOS upon powering on the device. That's distinct from the license branding for merely Steam-compatible devices, which include non-Valve input peripherals that have been reviewed by Valve to work with Steam. The new guideline replaced an older set of branding guidelines that last revised in late 2017 that included detailed instructions for how to use the old Steam machine name and logo on third-party hardware. That branding has been functionally defunct for years, making Valve's apparent need to suddenly update it more than a little suspect. So is this Steam Machine 2.0? While there hasn't been any wider official rollout of the Powered by SteamOS program yet, any move by Valve to offer officially licensed SteamOS compatibility for third-party hardware wouldn't come as a complete surprise. Valve's Lawrence Yang has been saying since 2022 that we're excited to see people make their own SteamOS machine. And last November, Yang told PC Gamer that SteamOS would be made more available on other handhelds with similar gamepad-style controller and a rough time frame of soon. In August, after SteamOS beta update suggested SteamOS might be coming to Asus Windows-based ROG Ally handheld, Yang told Verge that the Valve hardware team is continuing to work on adding support for additional handhelds on SteamOS. As we've waited for that official support to materialize and for long-promised general public distribution of SteamOS 3 on PCs, fans have had to get a bit creative to get the Linux-powered gaming-focused OS on their devices. Earlier this year, Ayeneo announced its next light handheld would ship with it's a
HoloISO.
HoloISO. Okay, an
Yeah.
Arch Linux fork that seeks to provide a close to official SteamOS experience without Valve's official support. In 2015, the limited and underperforming software support for early SteamOS made Steam machines a pretty poor alternative for Windows-powered gaming rigs. Today, the launch of the Steam Deck and a wide implementation of Proton-powered cross-compatibility has made modern SteamOS much more appealing alternative to costly Windows license for hardware OEMs. Here's hoping more hardware makers get the opportunity to make official use of the alternative very soon. Which, I remember, this actually makes me think as I'm reading it, because I kind of started getting into the listening of podcasts when SteamOS sort of was, mothballed or whatever, and like the freakouts on the Linux podcasts about, is this the end of gaming and Linux? All the fear. Does anybody remember that? Like the I don't want to say fear mongering,
yeah.
but like the the fears, the concerns about that, and then the panic. Yeah.
When did that happen?
It was around 2017, 2018, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was around then. Okay.
And then I remember when Proton started to become a big thing, all the complaining about, well, it's not native Linux, how dare they, blah blah blah. And I'm like, I don't care, if I can play the games and enjoy the same software, what does it matter to me? I'm not a purist, so sue me.
I hear people complain about the fact that they haven't released SteamOS yet, and then I read something like this and I wonder, like, is this why?
Is what why?
That they're wanting to have SteamOS be something that is more well supported as a I don't know, maybe this just occurred to me, so I didn't really form the thought enough, I guess.
If I had to guess, I think the reason SteamOS hasn't officially been released, or SteamOS 3, I should say, hasn't been officially released to like just generic people to put on their machines, because a lot of the engineering work for making a very bespoke thing has gone into making sure it works on the Steam Deck, and they haven't done as much. They haven't had a chance to do as much work to make sure it works on a variety of hardware, right?
So but you bring in something like this, and that's kind of what I'm thinking is, like, does that mean that if you have this, this process in place to sort of,
right, to sort of modularize it, I guess, or like
yeah, or you're saying, like, here's the requirements to, sort of to be able to run this effectively. This is the bespoke type of hardware.
So I think the branding thing, specifically the powered by SteamOS type thing, think of it as like a seal of quality, so to speak, saying like this device is powered by SteamOS. It will 100% work. Anything that is meant to work with SteamOS will work with this device, that kind of thing. It's more of a quality assurance, like a customer assurance type of branding. Whereas the sort of like, here's SteamOS 3 for you to put on your desktop machine is part of that same effort, in that I think they had this is the way it appears from the outside. I have no insight whatsoever, caveat as hell, right? So when it looks at what they built on SteamOS, SteamOS 3 was specifically targeting the deck. Like, it was all of the, if you look at the interface and the settings and all that, they're very specific to how the deck works. The power profiles that the deck has, the even the way you bring up certain things, like bringing up the side menu or bringing up the keyboard and all those other things, were specifically designed around the deck's control scheme. And I think getting SteamOS to a point where it can work on other devices was the extra effort they needed before they could release it widely. And this coincides with that effort because I feel like the same effort in getting SteamOS 3 to a generic release for just people to put on their PCs is the same effort to be able to tailor SteamOS for these powered by SteamOS devices, right? Because they're having to sort of decouple themselves from the deck to do that, right? It has to be, because right now, like I have it on my ROG Ally, right? The parts that control the Ally specific stuff are third-party community stuff. It's a plugin on top of SteamOS, whereas this would be the power profiles would be controlled within the SteamOS native interface, or the RGB lighting might be controlled natively from SteamOS, or and maybe there's requirements for inputs, right? Because the Steam Deck has trackpads, and because there are certain games that you can't really use without a mouse, and so the trackpads offer that. Many of the handhelds don't have trackpads, and so maybe that's a hardware requirement that the powered by SteamOS might require. I don't know that. I'm totally speculating. Don't go off and say
that's a fair point though. Yeah.
But with the generic release, a lot of that same engineering work in sort of decoupling it from the deck would benefit the generic hardware release as well. That's my total guess.
Yeah, this is a side question, and it may not be related to this in any way, but when something is certified to work in Proton,
Steam Deck verified,
does that mean that it will work specifically on a Steam Deck or any system that can run Proton?
Okay, so Steam Deck verified verifies that it will work on the Steam Deck
specifically,
but almost I can't think of a single instance when it's not the case that a Steam Deck verified game works on a desktop Linux machine. I can't think of any instance of a Steam Deck verified game that doesn't work on generic hardware.
Okay, because that was another thought I had was, well, if they're saying that something that is verified to work has to sort of fit within the confines of this bespoke hardware, and then they're also saying this, Steam machines SteamOS, then there's that sort of connection as well. But if that's not the case,
right? So this would be the equivalent of that verification, but for hardware and the OS, whereas that verification is for the OS and the game, right?
Yeah.
So they're like two similar avenues, just in different directions, right?
So what do you think of this just as a concept? I mean, you like the idea that?
Oh, absolutely, I love that idea. It completely remove you're talking about the branding, right? Specifically, yeah. I think it gives the consumer, it takes away the confusion, right? Because we always talk about people don't install operating systems on their machine, right? They just buy a thing and it comes with it. So if they get this handheld or this console or this PC or whatever that says powered by SteamOS, and it comes alongside, it's like SteamOS compatible, right? They know that they can go and buy peripherals that say works with SteamOS, and they know it'll connect up, right? Same way when you go and buy a mouse or a keyboard or whatever, it says Windows search, it has the little Windows logo on there or the Mac logo. It's shows that this works with this thing, right?
So this is a big step for them, because you got to think Valve, if they're going to do this, they're opening themselves up, like you're saying, if there's a piece of a peripheral or something that they're claiming is going to work, then they're going to have a lot more QA effort and a lot more sort of, effort that goes around any given release of something, because now they've got this larger ecosystem that they're supporting.
And see, that is a key thing that I think a lot of people that I've talked to haven't thought about when they think about Windows versus Linux in terms of hardware and other things, is that Microsoft has a lot of people internally, engineers, project managers, etc., that are talking to hardware makers and interfacing with them and saying, hey, I know you got this hardware coming out, how can we make this work with our stuff, right? It's not enough to just give APIs and tell everybody, well, good luck, right? They interface with the people to make sure that the product, when it launches, works on Windows, right? Same thing with the Macintosh and all that, right? And so this is basically Valve being that sort of liaison for for Linux gaming specifically. Like I know Canonical has people that work with hardware people, Fedora as well. And so it's that for Linux gaming, that they can work with peripheral makers, they can work with, even in the likes of like Razer or Corsair or whomever, and like, hey, how can we make this work on SteamOS, right? For our generic ISO for the PC, or if you have someone like companies like Ioneo, Asus for the ROG, Lenovo Legion Go, all these handhelds, MSI makes one with Intel stuff. Like, how can we get this working best natively? Not some hackadoo thing. We don't need the Asus Armory crate on top of it. We want to make the experience as seamless as possible, and that's. I'm all for this. Right?
It's funny because you mentioned that, and I think of PC gaming, and it's every single piece of hardware you got to have one of their terrible little.
Oh yeah, it's got Razer Synapse, and like, I bought a Corsair headset. Here's IQ. Oh, I bought this Logitech thing. Oh, here's Logitech G Hub. Yeah, exactly.
You boot up your computer, and there's like 20 things starting in the background.
So I can tell you specifically for my ROG Ally, right? There is a piece of software on there called Armory Crate. It's the thing Asus always ships with their ROG stuff for like configuring. That's the main interface you interact with on that device. You can launch Steam in big picture mode and all that, but remember, it's a Windows handheld, right? So even though Valve has SteamOS that has its own storefront, it has the game launcher, it has all this stuff built in as like a native experience. On Windows handhelds, the manufacturer provides that. And you can imagine about as quality as it's going to be, right? And so and it's always like on top of Windows, right? When you go into gaming mode on a Steam Deck, it is its own compositor and OS and everything, right? It feels like you can't minimize it and look at the desktop behind it, but you can do that on the Windows handhelds, right? So it kind of breaks that like feeling of a device, a console appliance, right?
Yeah, like a console, exactly.
Right.
Very much so, yeah.
And so I love this idea. I love this because they'll be bringing a much better experience to handhelds.
Do you see?
I have to say the Valve. Go ahead, Nate.
So do you see things like Legion Go also getting something like working with Valve to get it on their devices?
Yeah, actually, I do. It was months and months ago. There was a leak, so to speak, about the ROG Ally. I believe probably the Ally X, which is the newer one, running SteamOS natively. And that was like something in the background someone leaked. And then this came out recently, this branding thing, and it's like, see, here we go, right? And so you could easily see like a ROG Ally X and ROG Ally X like Steam edition or something, right? So like one that comes with SteamOS built in. And the big departure from the previous Steam machine thing is that we have Proton now. We have a much larger library. We're not limited to just Linux native stuff. And the other part is the Steam machines had third-party people making it, but it was not subsidized by Valve. Valve was just like, hey, you guys make the thing and we'll just put the software on it. But now Valve is actually taking a part in it, right? They want to make sure that it's certified and verified and all of this, and it probably subsidizing it to an extent too, right? And so you had to buy like a Steam machine in 2015. It was like $750. It's like everyone crapped on Microsoft for the Xbox One being $500, and you're asking for $750. Oh, and it can only play like 20 games. Like it was a bad sell back then, but now it's a totally different thing. The Steam Deck has proven that SteamOS is a viable thing. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of providing the hardware choices and the flexibility that PC gaming offers, right?
Right. I want to welcome Michael. I don't know if
hello.
Oh, good. It is working.
Oh yeah, I actually when I first joined and dropped out like an hour ago because I got a phone call.
Oh, okay. That was more important than us. I'm just kidding.
I'm sorry, but yes, because I'm doing.
That was a long phone call.
I called him.
Well, I was also driving to an airport, so.
Oh, okay.
Dropping off someone, so a little bit hectic.
I got you.
Your sound is very tinny, by the way, just so you know.
Probably because
it is what it is.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Just thought I'd let you know.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's either this or nothing. So.
Well, glad to have you.
That's...
Nope. Not gonna do that. I mean, I'd have to kick myself out probably. But anyway, well, welcome.
Yeah, like out of revenge, I'm like, how dare you? And I take it away. But yeah, I was listening to the conversation about the Steam Deck, and I agree that if Valve makes like this is all rumors, right? But if Valve makes a legitimate Steam machine and makes a legitimate distro that you could use like as an everyday, I think that'd be such a game changer that it's absurd.
Yeah, it'd be huge.
Well, you could even see them like, you know how a distro can become Linux in some ways. You know, when someone says Linux, in many cases they might just be thinking Ubuntu, just simply because. You could see Steam sort of taking that mantle.
You could
in some
absolutely.
ways.
I feel like, in fact, I feel like some people would argue that it's the best option we could do because, I mean, immutable systems is not like the ideal solution for everyone. That just it may be in the future, it might be, but right now they're not that. They can be annoying in some ways. Like actually, it's interesting because like certain levels, immutable is great. So like, and it's also like this weird dichotomy. So like the middle tier is where it's not great. So if you're like a tinkerer, that it's not going to work very well. But if you're like a power user who just wants to develop stuff, it's great. But if you're a everyday user who just wants to have web browser and email, also great. It's that middle piece that's like kind of not there yet. Maybe at some point. But I think the best way of doing immutable is kind of like the way that they're doing with SteamOS. So if they did that and turned it into a general distro, and they also made gaming viable, which is basically the most important part for a lot of people. I know a lot of people say like, oh, gaming's not that big a deal. They're wrong. Gaming
are wrong.
Yeah, it's such a huge important factor. Like the amount of money that's in gaming, the amount of people who do gaming, even if they do, one game or 100 games and they keep up with everything, the expectations are so high that if Valve were to make a system and make a distro that's Linux powered and all that, it would be first they have to meet the criteria of like basically perfection. And if they don't, that would be a bit of a problem. But they have like such a strong play in the fact that if they do it, people are going to assume that it's going to be great for gaming, like automatically. So we don't have to explain like, yeah, gaming's good. Because right now we basically have to explain like, yeah, there's 17,000 games that are available on Linux. Is it exactly every single one of them you might want? Probably not. It depends on what you want. That's what you got to say now. But when Valve makes their own, we don't even have to talk about how many games there are. We just say like, is gaming good on Linux? Yeah, Valve literally made one. Like that makes it such a giant play.
For sure. And I think the other thing to think about that as well is probably the reason they haven't released SteamOS is for that whole perfection reason. That's probably one guess. But it might be also like another leveraging tool, or maybe because there's some game production facility companies. What's the term? I don't know. Game studios, like EA, that are kind of being turds. So hopefully this will encourage them to be less turd-like. At least that's what I'm hoping.
Well, I mean, EA.
The publishers are going to be just, yeah.
EA and Riot Games. They're going to like drag their feet as much as they possibly can. So I don't expect them, but I expect other ones to do it. Other ones I feel like would have a very high likelihood of being interested in doing it.
So talking about the publishers, specifically with the anti-cheat stuff, like I could see Valve shipping SteamOS officially to desktops and other devices, having a very specifically signed kernel that the anti-cheat could run on, right? Could connect to. And that would solve the problem of, well, it's running in user space and wine, so it's like having a problem. Like if they were to ship like a very bespoke like kernel and the because it's immutable, right? They ship their entire image that's like verified, hey, this will do your anti-cheat and people can't mess with it or whatever, then They might be able
That
to get
mutable
around that.
part is really that's the play act. That's a fantastic point. I don't know why I never thought of that, but now I feel kind of ridiculous not thinking about that. That is a great point because it's not even just having a bespoke kernel. They could have literally the exact same normal kernel that everybody's using, but the fact that it's immutable, in order to run cheats, they would have to break the immutability, and and they could detect if it's broken or not. Like,
Correct,
I feel like
you could run like a
huge
hash of the system, right? Of the image.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, that would kind of make some people will get mad because they would effectively create like this sort of
They could just go to another distro.
No. I'm saying that there would be developers who would only make their game work on that Steam system, the Steam distro.
Oh, right.
And then there would be like people are like, "Oh, how dare you do that?" And then you're like, "Oh, it's not our fault," but it is. If they did that, it would technically be their fault.
But that's the solution.
It is. It actually is. I mean, immutability is a fantastic way of solving such a it's interesting because it's such a huge, difficult problem to solve, and yet the solution is like a very simple, immutable distro.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one they've still never solved, right? I mean, it's the one that just keeps coming back over and over again.
So,
I think another reason they haven't released the generic one is because like 90-something% of gamers are on NVIDIA. And that they have to make their game scope render, their game scope session and all this other stuff work well on NVIDIA.
That's one.
And that has not happened yet. And so
I feel like there's so many reasons why they wouldn't do it. That's got to be some of it. And what Nate said earlier, I think is also. I feel like there's also another one that maybe I'm kind of being like, not like anti-commercialism or whatever, but maybe they're doing it because another reason they could be doing it is that if they were to release it, everyone would just take SteamOS and put it on their stuff. And in the beginning, it wouldn't be commercially viable to do that because you'd have people constantly, copying you, and you can't like prove you are the best. Now that they're in a position where everyone knows that it's the best option, then people are like, well, you're just using SteamOS to do it. It might actually
make it. But that's why they have the branding. They're like copyrighted branding of Steam, like powered by SteamOS. So if you go and get a machine, a handheld, a device, or whatever that comes with SteamOS that they just grabbed because it's open source or whatever, then they don't get that branding. So it's sort of like, it's kind of like with the Nintendo cartridge. Look for the seal of quality. If it's not there, don't get it.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think the problem I would see with that is, so if you want to run Tailscale on SteamOS, unless they've gotten around this. Last time I checked, when I went to install it, you have to turn immutability off so you can make all the changes, and then once you get an update, then you have to do it all over again. So they're gonna have to.
I feel like there's gonna be some compensation factor.
SteamOS or include Tailscale in SteamOS somehow.
I mean, they could allow you to break the immutability like they do now. You just might break anti-cheat when you do it.
Right.
Right.
So I'm saying, true. So I'm saying that would be the problem, though, that you could only, you'd have that as the issue, unless
edge cases.
Okay, you're right. No, you're right. It would be an edge case.
How many gamers give a damn about running Tailscale?
I do. How am I supposed to?
Well, I'm sure. But are you a real gamer, Nate? Are you a real gamer?
When I go to play Minecraft,
how dare you?
With my kids when I'm in Texas and they're in Michigan, Tailscale.
How's Tailscale working on that Switch or on your PlayStation?
So
whoa! Don't move the goalpost.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
What we're talking about is that this is no longer going to be a console for some reason, and it doesn't apply to its own rules of being a console because we were trying to make it a different thing.
I was not moving the goalpost. I was
kidding.
simply pointing out that gamers don't care about running tail scale.
I don't think that's necessarily true, because it depends on what kind of person you consider a gamer. Like if you're talking about people who don't know what it is, yes, sure. But there are values to it, right? I'm saying as a joke about like people. My point was that it's funny because really Nate was kind of changing the goalpost, but
I was. I'm the one actually at fault.
The Steam Deck is a console. It is an appliance. It is a specific purpose system, and so is the Nintendo Switch, and so is the Xbox. And anybody who like says that this, if it doesn't work on the Steam Deck, it's because the Steam Deck sucks. Which some people will say that,
but they're wrong
because they have bad judgment. In those situations, they're basically saying that the Nintendo Switch, if the Nintendo Switch can't run this particular game, then it's also terrible. But they don't even consider the fact that that's like they've always worked like that. There's always been exclusives, and if you just look at the games that don't work as being exclusives, then what's wrong with it? It doesn't mean the system's bad.
Right.
So
and it doesn't mean that Steam suddenly stops working on Fedora and Ubuntu and Arch and all these others. Like,
yeah,
you still want to play your games, play it on the distro you like. Just know that you may not have anti-cheat.
Yeah, exactly. If you want anti-cheat and you want to play those specific games, well, you got to there's a compromise there.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like that will definitely 100%, without even the slightest bit of doubt, cause people to scream and yell and all of that. But
much less things have caused people to scream and yell.
Exactly. I was going to say, but they also did that when Ubuntu moved the close button to the left side of the window.
I mean, that was tantamount to the start screen for those folks.
Just that's still funny because Elementary OS has a button on the left too, and the fact that people lose their minds on this particular thing, it's like, who cares? It's not a big deal. Now, Elementary OS has literally no reason to do it other than they just wanted to. Ubuntu actually had a functional purpose for it, and people still lost their minds on it, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Elementary OS is inspired by Mac OS anyway, isn't it? That's probably why it's there.
They will say no, and they will say that they will actually. I had a conversation with somebody from there. I don't think it was Danielle. It might have been. I'm not sure if it was Danielle or Cassidy or someone else, but somebody was very much adamant that it was not an inspiration by Mac. It was not a Mac clone or whatever. And then I was like, yeah, but it looks like one. And it's really hard to deny that.
And they use like the whatever that key is. It's got like looks like a interchange on Mac OS. It's like option, open option. I don't know what the heck it's called.
Oh, that knot, the knot or whatever.
Yeah, it looks
the
like
command knot.
It looks like the exit. Like an interstate interchange.
The option is
it's the command. Yeah. The command key is what it looks like.
Okay.
Yeah, the command keeps the loop, and the option is the line, the line in the swoop down.
Whatever.
That's correct. I use that. So
anyway,
not inspired in any way whatsoever.
But in Elementary OS, they use that as their meta key, symbol. So I'm like, okay, if you're not trying to be Mac OS,
that's correct.
You're
you
not
definitely
trying very hard.
They're the counterfeit genes of the Linux world.
Yeah. So I don't know if this is true, but speaking of Elementary OS, has anybody here tried it since it came out, the latest one of 8?
No.
Okay. If y'all want to try this, let me know if you have the same experience. If anybody in here has AMD specifically, there's a bug I found that I've seen other people report that the last time I checked, it's still the same ISO, which is very, I don't even know how to judge that. But the last time I checked, the ISO for AMD does not work, like at all. And if you boot it to a live USB, it works just fine. It will boot it, it'll install it, everything is good to go. You're golden. But if you install it on the system, then it doesn't work. It will not boot. And I tried it multiple times, and and I talked to Danielle about it, and she said to do something and talk to this other guy, and I talked to this other guy, and he said you got to remove the splash. And I'm like, that
Like
means it's
Plymouth?
broken.
Like-
Yeah. Or like disable it or something. And I was like, that means broken.
Yeah.
So a week later, I looked to see if it was still the same ISO, exactly the same ISO. And I haven't looked, since Tuesday, which was a week later. I haven't looked since. If it's still the same one, then I feel like I can't recommend it like at all. Because if you're releasing something that an entire manufacturing architecture user base cannot boot your system, then you should not ship it,
But don't you want the barrage of OKs thrown at you? I mean, come on.
What do you mean? What's with the okays? What do you mean?
Oh, when you boot up without a splash screen, you just get all the services starting and stuff.
Oh,
Just,
yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like the terminal output stuff looking thing.
Yeah, the boot waterfall. Yeah.
I actually prefer that. I always hit escape so I can watch it. I enjoy that more.
Yeah.
But edge
Well,
case,
I mean,
edge case.
it's actually not that bad. It's not that bad. Like if it has like color in it, maybe it'd be fun. But I think the more problematic part of that is the fact that if you know that the problem is there and you still release it, and then a week later it's still there, and this is not just affecting a few people. This is affecting everyone who uses an AMD machine. That's not good.
There's a phrase sealed with a kiss. This is like released with a shrug.
Yeah.
Release with a shrug. I like it.
Yeah.
I guess that would be a good way of describing it.
Well, maybe next release it'll be fine. I'm sure they'll get it. They'll clean it up. I'm sure. But I'm also.
Yeah, I remember we did the Biddle thing quite a few years ago with Elementary, and everyone had printer problems. I don't know if anyone remembers that. No one could get printers to work.
It wouldn't matter now because nobody uses printers.
Oh, I do. Thank you very much.
I don't use a printer either.
I scan, I print.
Colin writes letters to himself and prints them out.
Somebody's got to.
That's funny. Well, to move it on with a little bit more game news, just since we're in that region, there's an article on TechDirt that a GOG game preservation program gets tested early by Blizzard. So I don't know if anyone saw this, but this prompted me to go out and actually buy a game.
What game is this?
Warcraft 2 are the two games.
Warcraft 1 and 2, the RTS ones?
Yep, real-time strategies, yep. So it was just only a few weeks ago that we discussed, the author on TechDirt. Good Old Games, or GOG, returned to its roots with the site's GOG preservation program. While GOG never stopped selling, good old games, the site also expanded over their years to be the storefront of new releases and AAA games as well. But with this program, GOG committed to maintaining its preservation efforts. Games sold on the store that are also part of the preservation program now come with a commitment from GOG to keep these games compatible on modern hardware in any way possible, whether that's updating the game code and wrappers where IP holder allows it, or packaging the game with programs like DOSBox where it can't. So now the program is going to get an early test. Blizzard recently announced that it will be releasing a remastered version of Warcraft and Warcraft 2. As a result, they have announced that the original version of those games will be delisted from GOG in a little over a week from now. Currently, GOG has a DRM-free version of those games with a bundle on the site. So what is going to happen is those original versions of these games, once GOG... The question is what's going to happen to those games when they delist them. Well, for starters, GOG is incentivizing the purchase of the bundle by putting it on sale. And after that, true to their word, the preservation program will maintain those games even after they're delisted from the GOG sale.
That's good.
Yep. So they run on their blog. Going forward, even if a game is no longer available for sale on GOG as part of the GOG preservation program, it will continue to be maintained and updated by us, ensuring it remains compatible with modern and future systems.
Wow, how does that work? How do they have the rights to update the game?
I don't know. So this is the preservation program in action. Once these titles are bought on GOG, the company stands to make no money from them in the future, despite the lack of monetary incentive. However, GOG will take any action it can to attain those games after purchase, maintain those games after purchase, updating them as possible to keep them working on modern hardware. So I'm not sure of any other storefront that is making this kind of effort to keep older games around after the publishing company no longer wants to maintain them. So it's quite a novel commitment, keeping non-revenue generating games playable for buyers even after the publisher no longer makes them available for sale. The Warcraft titles certainly won't be the only games for which publisher enthusiasm lags behind GOG and its classic gamers. As noted at the preservation program launch, for some titles, GOG does not have the rights to modify a game's build, and only its original developers can do so. So if GOG can't make it work, say DOSBox, extraordinary efforts may be required. So that's why
Sorry, go ahead.
So that's why all this comes with the caveat that GOG will maintain the games in any way possible. Where it's not possible, publisher and IP rights holder still maintain the stranglehold as to whether or not the cultural output will be disappeared. So as it said in the previous, yep. So anyway, so that's what's going on. I don't know how GOG can do that. As far as, I mean, like, from a legal perspective, don't care. But from,
ready to
from a
hear my
technical
idea?
perspective, yes.
They don't modify the game at all. They modify the area around it. Much in the same way we do on Linux with Proton, you can create compatibility layers using things like Wine and others.
Maybe they just use Proton and
yeah, exactly. Yeah, they basically just run Proton on Windows or Mac or whatever, right? Or some similar compatibility layer tools, right? And then you could just create this sort of runtime environment that these old games run in, and it doesn't matter what the OS is behind it.
Yeah, that's true. Sense. They also mentioned DOSBox, right?
Yeah, and that's basically what that is. Right?
That's what it's for. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, they could get away with doing it that way because they're not really updating the game. They could just update as long as the game works. It doesn't matter how it works in the gamer's perspective.
Right. As long as they just click it and run it and play it, they're good. They don't it doesn't really matter how it works underneath. Yeah. And so they never have to dive into the actual IP, the actual code, the protected bits. They just modify the environment around it to keep it going.
Yeah. That's solid. I feel like we've solved it.
Yep. Man, we're just racking them up today.
Yeah.
another win for
it's also like the same kind of thing that Lutris does too, right? So like that's the whole. What's funny is a lot of people think that Lutris's purpose is to make games run on Linux, but its purpose is this game preservation. So if it doesn't run on Linux and it's like a brand new game, it doesn't mean they're going to try to do it. But if it's an old game, they're going to try to do it.
Right. They have like why bother making a game that works on Steam now work? That's about everything else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Anyway. I thought it was pretty cool. I bought the
cool.
Warcraft.
Good job,
Warcraft
GOG.
2, and I probably burned a good 2 hours of my week, maybe a little bit more, playing Warcraft 2. So taking me back to 1999. It's good times. I think the music is done very well, and the voice acting very funny. They put a lot of little Easter eggs in there that I think is.
I've never played that game.
My kids were not
I've also
interested
never
at all.
played World of Warcraft.
Zug.
Zug.
Yeah.
So what's funny is actually like GOG doing this is pretty cool, but it also makes me wonder, like, if you're going to put the work into making sure like these runtimes work and everything, why doesn't your dog Galaxy? Why isn't it trash? Like it's trash. So like, work on that.
Heroic.
I mean, heroic makes. I'm saying if
Dude,
they either
heroic, yeah.
adopt heroic.
Heroic looks
or-
anorexic compared to GOG Galaxy, man. It's real. Like GOG Galaxy is a pig.
Yeah, it's super bloated. Why did you use Electron to make a game launcher? Like, what? But anyway, I don't even know how a heroic is built, but like maybe it is Electron, but it's still if it is, it's still better. And it's funny because it's like, just adopt heroic, because heroic works on Windows too, doesn't it?
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe.
That'd be cool if it does. I think it does, but yeah.
But I got to find out. Heroic Game Launcher Windows.
Yeah, I think it does. I could be wrong. It's been a while since I looked it up.
So yes, they have a Windows. They have a
Yeah,
portable
they do.
and a setup, and they have Mac OS for Intel and Apple Silicon.
I'm so good at remembering things.
You are-
Makos.
So, have y'all heard about Mozilla rebranding? Y'all talked about that?
No.
Are they branding it a mozzarella?
Oh, that would be great, but no. They're still calling it Mozilla and they're still calling it Firefox. They're just
Oh, so they're not doing
just-
anything. Okay.
they're changing the logo and the stuff. Like that's basically it. Not the name, just the logo. And the
It's just
logo
vibes,
is
guys.
it's just vibes, yes. But what's best, the best thing about this is that they are theoretically losing market share, losing money, or at least they're going to lose money with the Chrome situation if that happens, if that comes to fruition, or something doesn't stop it or whatever. But they said, you know what, we're gonna take some time, do some rebranding, change the logo, and make it 1,000 times worse.
Great. Let me see so I can find an article on that.
It's on their Mozilla blog. They actually have the logos and things. So I would like for people to tell me what you think this looks like once you get the link. I would, if I was not in a car, I would give you a better thing. But I want to know what you think about how it looks like. What's the first thing you see when you look at it, and what else do you see? Because my expectation of what you will see is absolutely nothing of what they want you to see.
I see what looks like a flag, like one of those like wartime looking flag, like you'd see like an like
So
medieval era.
if you focus on the
Like-
black and not the green, it looks like a bird going ah. Really? Like
I'm so
if
glad-
you focus your eyes on the like the black part, it looks like the green dot is like the eye and it's like a mouth.
Oh yeah,
So
it
the-
kind of does. Yeah, I see that now.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing. I'm
Yeah,
just
so
seeing like an angry bird.
Like the dinosaur from Adventure on the Atari.
Yeah, it
Yes.
looks like
Yeah,
an old
actually,
Atari
yeah.
game.
Yeah.
Some old
So-
Atari game.
So what do you see?
It's like a Rorschach test or something.
Yeah. What else? Does anybody else see anything else?
It looks. I mean, it looks like an M, or maybe like
Yep.
that's all I see though.
I can't unsee the bird. I'm sorry, I can't.
I can't unsee the bird now either. It looks like a bird.
Yeah, it's all I see
Okay.
is the bird.
Okay, this is fantastic. I'm
Okay.
gonna use this in my coverage,
Oh,
but
good.
this is fantastic because when I first saw this, all I saw is a flag, and what you see is what I referred to. I just saw a duck screaming.
Yeah, it looks like a duck's. Yeah.
Yeah, and here's the best part. That's supposed to be a dinosaur.
Okay.
Okay.
And the justification of it being a dinosaur is that it is basically like an Atari dinosaur. There is an M, and that's supposed to be clever. It's not. And it's supposed to be the Mozilla type dinosaur, like the T-Rex that they used to have. And so far, every time I've seen anybody talk about it, no one saw a dinosaur. It was always a flag or a bird of some kind.
Yeah, it's just like Atari Scrooge McDuck. That's all I can see.
And it's funny because this is worse. This is worse than like 3 or 4 brands ago, like 3 or 4 designs ago. They're just getting worse. Like when they did the whole, we are so clever. You know what? Our name of our company has 2 L's in it. You know what we could do? Let's make those slashes like : / of addresses of a browser. And then people saw it and thought it looked stupid because you don't have a colon in your name. So your name looks like Mo Lilla. And it's like,
Yeah. And
what
and
is
now they
this?
just said, you know what, just take words out of it. Problem solved.
Yeah, now let's just remove it entirely and make it confusing and look like a flag.
The
What?
2030 rebrand is just that green line.
Or it's probably the M that's on the side and it looks like a backward, like a backwards E, but in that shape, it's like, what's the Greek
Sigma?
letter for that? Is that the Greek one?
A sigma? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. There you go. Looks like that.
All right, so if they would have,
I like how you're going to ask me if that's what it is. And then I tell you, and you're like, no, I don't think that's what it is, but I don't know what it is.
I didn't ask you. I did not say what I don't think that what is. I said, is that what it is? And you said yes. And I was like, okay, cool. I didn't disagree. You
Okay.
heard a disagreement.
Okay.
I was asking for clarification.
so
Okay.
there, I did an image search and they have like one of like a dinosaur looking thing screaming. They should have just done that.
Yeah. Which they did like 20 years ago. Like for a long time, the logo of Mozilla was a red dinosaur. Like just a red
But they have like
2D
a pixelated,
dinosaur.
They have a pixelated one here. I'm going to put the. I don't know if you'll be able to actually look at it. But here,
I'm not driving anymore. I'm waiting at the charger.
all right. So I put it in the Zoom chat as well as the YouTube chat. But there's
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be.
But so if they did that, I think that, I mean, I'd be fine. I mean, okay, frankly, I don't care. Whatever they want to do, I don't care. But that
Frankly,
would
my
look
dear, I
better.
don't. Yeah,
Well,
if they were to
lost
do that,
yeah, they kept the feet and tail. They didn't add the feet and tail. That's probably why it looks
or the
so
hands, yeah.
bizarre. And the
So
hands, yeah, true.
The problem with what they're doing is they're trying to make it like, so in design, especially in icon design and branding, you want it to be as simple as possible, but you also want it to be identifiable for what you're intending it to be. That's where
Right.
they failed. They didn't do the identifiable. They did a very simple thing. Yes, it's very simple, but it was also not great.
Show the
It
logo
doesn't
like a
mean
new employee, and you're like, what are we, like a bus or something?
But it's funny because it's like a lot of these companies are now rebranding for to make it worse. Like
The
Patreon,
Verge's
for
website
example.
makes me retch every time I see it.
Oh yeah, it's not great. But like, look at the new Patreon logo. It looks like they used to have a P. And you're like, okay, cool. Then they turn it into a line, a vertical line, and a circle. You're like, okay, I can still see the P, I guess, sure. And then now it's like a big blob of ink that just fell on the ground.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna say. It's family friendly. I'm just gonna say that.
I thought it was an F.
I understand. Yes.
It looks in that frame. It looks unenthused.
Yes.
All right, now I got to look.
God.
Yeah, just look at the
You stare at the
Patreon
black and
logo.
white
It
one
just
for a
it
while,
looks
you
like
can see
it's
a
not
dinosaur.
excited about anything.
All right. Well, on
That's
that
one way
note,
to say it.
It is that about that time.
Okay, that does look goofy.
We didn't get to nearly any of these news articles. One of these days we'll actually get through these things.
Okay, well, hold on. We got a little bit more time. Let's do one more.
No,
It
we
looks
don't.
like a flag.
We're at time.
Ah,
I
I was trying to be an enabler.
know you are an enabler, Matt. I mean Michael.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have to talk about next week. It's an application appetizer. Has anybody been playing around with any applications that has like revolutionized their desktop experience that they would like to share with the class? Anything particular?
Revolutionized.
Oh, or maybe just an incremental improvement. I don't care.
There's an app that people don't typically know about and how to like. And I don't know if it's necessarily revolutionized, but it'll help people who want to save storage space or want to get rid of duplicates of their files and just organize stuff better. And it's called Czkawka.
Hiccup.
No, that's what it means, but it's called Czkawka.
No, I thought you said hiccup.
All right, now I have to find it.
But
Yeah,
it's
I-
spelled CZKAWKA or something like that. It's
Yeah.
it's a
It
Polish
runs-
word for hiccup.
Yeah, I've been running that for years. It's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, cool. I'll put that. That made a quick discussion there. I will put it here. Let's see.
I mean, there's other options. People, if they have any other suggestions, I'm just saying
Nope.
that's cool. That's a cool
This-
app.
This would be good because I only have 32 terabytes of storage on my server, but I want to make sure I keep it nice and clean.
Bro, come on.
I know
Pick it up.
it's pretty sad.
I actually, while I was recording Destination Linux just a couple days ago, I had a notification that said, "Hey, your storage is low. You should probably delete some stuff. Otherwise, we're going to ruin your recording." And I had at that time 800 megs left, so I had to quickly and this was during the recording, so I had to quickly adjust.
Oh, there's
I was
different,
Well,
Didn't lose anything.
different front ends for it too.
Yeah.
speaking of applications, I realized I didn't have a system monitor application, and I was looking at some of the ones in the terminal, and there's one called Bashtop, which is quite a nice looking system monitor. It's
And
not
then you
bad.
found Plasma System Monitor and realized this is the best one.
No, I'm on Cinnamon, so I wouldn't use the Plasma one.
But then you installed Plasma System Monitor anyway because it was the best one.
And then there's one of the people that I'm subscribed to was doing a video on weather, WTTR, in terminal as well. That's pretty handy, I must say. Never
It is
knew
very
about
nice.
that at all. Yeah.
It is very nice, yeah.
All right, so I would say Sneeze. Is it called Sneeze? Czkawka? Or
Basically.
or any other. It's maybe like a file. Would you? Let's see. How would you describe this?
It's a file scanning system. It's a disk usage tool.
To remove
But it
unnecessary files from your
also
computer.
finds duplicate files too, as well as large files and
So
everything.
if a file system content maintenance application.
Yeah, sure.
So that's what we'll do for next week, and then but of course, if you have anything else you want to share, like BTOP
How do you pronounce that?
Bashtop, I'll put it in the chat.
Czkawka?
Czkawka.
Czkawka.
Czkawka?
Yes.
Oh.
The pronunciation is okay. The developer is Polish, but specifically chose this word to see how people would pronounce it and butcher it.
I think they just play around with us sometimes.
So I gotta say I appreciate that. I think that's a fine that's a fine way to do business, if I do say so.
I agree, and as I found, I wish I had actually tried before I did this, but when I found the app, I was like searching through the GitHub and found out why he chose it. I was like, okay, now I have to go figure out how to say this, and then I figured it out. And I was like, okay, so I ruined his attempt because he told me why.
Well, I think it's pretty great.
Oh yeah, it's a good way of messing with people. I like that.
Mhm.
It's not great for it's actually really good for uniqueness and people being able to find your application. But the problem is that if they're not Polish, no one can spell this thing whatsoever.
So terrible SEO, but great press.
Yeah, great attention and a great thing for people to remember. And you get like, yes, that's the application. And as someone who told you about this application, and I have used it for a very long time, years in fact, I have no idea how to spell it. I just don't remember. So every time I go into my app menu, I just type in C and just scroll until I find it. That's it.
Well, as long as you can find
That's the downside for this thing. So if you're going to try to do for SEO, good luck.
it. Right. Might need alternative spelling. I don't know. All right. Well, it is that time for last call. So, did anybody have anything they want to talk about that they're doing? Any cool projects? Michael, of course, you do lots of cool things.
So much. Crazy. So much. If we want to start with me, I guess
Sure.
I've been doing live streams of This Week in Linux now. I started that back up a few episodes ago. And every Friday at noon Central Time is when I do the show. It is designed to be done by like an hour or two. I have never done that. So it usually takes about 3 or 4. And if one day it'll be on time and be properly executed. Who knows? And also I'm working on some new videos, and I got a lot of new stuff. And I'll give you one sneak peek for one video, and just to give you like a little bit of a taste of all the stuff I'm doing. Especially also Destination Linux and all that, the great podcast that I do. This video I'm making is about the terminology of Linux and how some terms are just not very good and need to be ended. And the way I'm going to get people to click it is very clickbaity. I 100% get it, but it's going to happen. And it's me looking at the camera, right, obviously. And then there's a text next to me that says, "Stop using free software." But free software will be in quotes because I'm talking about the term, not the software. So, I mean, people are going to be like, what? I'm like, no, you didn't see the quotes, did you?
That'd be good. That's not really clickbait though, because that's actually what you're saying.
Correct, but people are probably they're not going to see the quotes probably, and they're going to think it's clickbait. So it's not clickbait, but it looks like it. Which in a way is kind of clickbaiting the clickbait idea of clickbait.
I love everything about this.
I mean, I think it's fine. I don't know why it'd be a problem.
Because it's no one understands it, and you have to explain it as you're telling it to people. That's the core reason. That word is terrible. Term is terrible.
Probably not the place to ask you this, but why not throw it out there? So, do you see any future for hardware addicts coming back?
There is a potential. I would say that don't hold your breath at the moment, but maybe it could happen. I feel like the percentage of likelihood it would come back is less than 50. So, right at the moment, but it's possible.
I got you. Well, I do miss that podcast. I just want to throw that out there.
We all miss it, actually. We've talked about it, and we've talked about potentially coming back and figuring out a way to bring it back. And we have talked about a few ideas of how it could come back. So far, we haven't found the actual solution to bringing it back, but it is something that we're thinking about, and we've tried to come up with like brainstorming and see if there's ways to do it. If we did bring it back, it would be in a different form than it was in some ways. Like it'd still be the same show, but it would be maybe a different release cadence or something like that, or different process or whatever. We'd have to figure out a way to make it work. But right now we're still in the whole idea phase.
Got you. Well, it makes sense. Also, I know time is rough right now.
Time is of the essence, my friend.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, fantastic. Appreciate you being here, Michael.
Yeah. It's been a while. I wanted to join and shed some light on I don't know what I'm talking about. Continue.
On something.
Yeah, on whatever.
All right. And he wasn't here this time, but he was harassing, and I shouldn't say he wasn't harassing. He was giving his views in the YouTube chat, but Steve's very own. He's been streaming a lot more. Now that he's retired, he's got more time to stream. And so I think the best part about his stream is if you visit and you accumulate some points by watching it on the YouTube side, and do a exclamation point fart, it will disrupt him and do a fart animation on top of Steve. And that's one of my favorite things, especially Sunday morning. Like it's like I'm perpetually 12 years old because it makes me laugh so much just to do that. I don't know why.
We're all just children inside.
We are. Anyway, so
yeah, I would do that too. Steve, get ready for it.
Yep. So especially like when he's trying to explain something and he's getting really serious, it's just so funny. I don't know why he leaves it active. Oh, anyway.
I'm also curious how he has points on YouTube. That's interesting.
Yeah, he's got some like some sort of stream bot thing. I don't know. He explains
Oh,
it.
streamer bot. Yeah, streamer
Yeah.
bot. Okay.
And so somehow, and you know, you can check your points and everything else. I got a lot of points. I got a lot of farts to throw. So, and there's some other things too. Like you can take pictures and you can punch him. Because I say he's the least punchable face on the internet, but you can actually punch him. So, anyway, so it's so much fun. Also, I'm on a podcast called Linux Out Loud. Last week we didn't have Matt, but we had Bill and Wendy and I. We talked about backup strategies, and it just released, so you can check that out. It's on. I said on the YouTubes. I haven't listened back to it, but hopefully I didn't say anything embarrassing.
Yeah, you're great at that show.
It's fun. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
So thank you. It's very nice of you to say that. I have a website called cubeandlate.com. Sometimes I publish things. So Linux Saloon is part of the text. Oh, do you have anything else like Eric or Jinda, Colin? Colin, got any videos in the burner?
No, not yet. No.
No. Okay.
Oh, I just wanted to say though, talking about the desktop tabs, I worked it out. It is on Cosmic.
Oh, is it?
All right, the desktop. It is. So you press the Super S button, and then the current window that's open will turn into tabs, and then any application you open after that opens up in a tab. It's absolutely awesome, I must say.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't even know that existed until somebody mentioned it.
So that's a cool feature that they mentioned they were bringing in like Alpha 2 or something, and it is a very cool idea that they stole from KDE. How dare you? Although KDE also got rid of it years ago, so sad. But anyway, it's still a cool feature.
I don't know if it's on your list or on your radar, Nate, as well, but I've seen some news about KDE and GNOME making their own distros.
Yeah, that's a really interesting topic.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yep.
It's a really interesting topic that we don't have time for because Nate is trying to close the show. But I'll say that it actually makes sense for KDE to do it. It doesn't really make sense for GNOME to do it, in my opinion. And we could talk about it after the show is ended and give you more detail.
Bum, bum, bum.
Bum, bum, bum.
See, that's the incentive for people to join the show, in the Zoom, to actually be on the show instead of just watching live, because then they get to see it after, the aftermath.
But our after show's not recorded, so we can't even offer it.
Exactly. Yeah. Ours aren't either on purpose, because you have to be there to enjoy the morsels of knowledge that are provided.
Yeah. A good deal. Well, anyway, Linux Saloon is part of the Tux Digital Network, so check out more great shows at tuxdigital.com. I want to thank you all for your support, however you do it, being a part of the conversation here on the Zoom meeting and on the YouTube stream, as well as everyone for watching the show after the fact. Oops. I want to thank everyone involved in making the Linux and open source tools possible for us to not only have this conversation, but also to have fun and enjoy our technology. Linux truly puts personal back in a personal computer. Thank you for stopping by. Be sure to tip your developers, and please remember to Linux responsibly. Until next time, see you.
Bye.